Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In this episode I'm going to show you my new latest project. As you may have guessed already, it's an estate, or if you're in the United States it's a wagon, and judging by the content on my channel so far there's a high probability that it's a BMW, which it is, and going by the fact that I love older cars, so to say, it's an E91. So this project is going to be a little bit different to my last one. I'm actually building this car along with a friend of mine who actually owns this car, and we've decided to do like a build together on it, just because there are a number of things which we both wanted to do, and we thought it'd be a good idea to actually build a car together. Around about a year or so ago I found this car on Marketplace, and it wasn't too far away, so I got immediately excited because of the spec of the car, and I then essentially made my friend buy the car. I then used it for a little while, addressed a few little bits and pieces on it. So if you saw my iDrive retrofit video from CCC to CIC, it was actually done on this very car. I then also addressed there was an issue with the exhaust, and I had to replace rear discs and pads because there was a bit of vibration coming through the body of the car when braking, but not through the steering wheel, more so through the body. So it was the rear discs and pads that needed doing. So I'd replaced them, and I'd been using it for a little while. And then eventually, when I was quite happy with how the car drove and where it was mechanically, I handed it over to my friend to start using it. He was using it for a little while, and then something happened to it. But before we get onto that, let's talk about this actual car. So it's a 335i N55 on a 2008 reg. So it's pre-LCI, and it was actually really nicely spec'd car, and it was super cheap. So the reason why we sort of had to buy it was because it was cheap and it had all the spec. So it had the CCC iDrive with DAB, and I don't know if you can see in this window here, there is a DAB aerial inside the window. You can see the lines. It's got glass panoramic sunroof. It's got the comfort access, electric folding mirrors, xenon headlights, had a few other bits and pieces. Had really nice lemon interior, privacy glass, obviously, M Sport, completely original car. It's had a few body imperfections, and I don't know if you can see on here, there's a little dent in the quarter here, and there's a few little dings and dents in this door, and a little crease in the wing. And the wheels could have done with a refurb, but they had decent Michelin tyres on them. The side skirt was scuffed, but other than that the car actually was really nice. It drove really well once the two little issues were sorted, which I mentioned earlier, and we had big plans for it. I think the only real issue we had with the car was the fact that it was silver. It's not to everybody's taste, and certainly not to mine. I prefer black, white, blue, red, yellow, but silver is not really my colour. So we did have plans to have it potentially resprayed or wrapped in something else, but yeah, this was the car. So on to the point where my friend started driving the car. He had an unfortunate accident and a little bump in it. He was driving home late at night, and there was a broken down van in the left lane of the motorway without any lights, and the motorway was unlit. It was also raining at the same time. He saw the van a little bit too late. He did manage to react to it, but he still collided with it, and this was the damage. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a dent in this area here. This is what's happened to the wheel and to the brake disc. I'm surprised the suspension leg didn't detach. It was still intact, more or less. The front wing, or the front fender, was actually embedded in the van that this car collided with, and then surprisingly the engine itself hasn't sustained any damage. It sort of got bypassed and the impact got deflected by the chassis rails. So the shell itself is a complete loss. It's a complete totaled write-off. But most of the other special parts which made us buy the car in the first place have survived. So the door, I think the door we can save, that should buff out. The wing mirror, might need to replace that one. But yeah, I think the rest of it should be okay. Only joking. But going back to it, the damage was so substantial that the front door had actually misaligned by about an inch, and then the rear door is actually dented here. So on impact, the body had twisted in such a way that it's bent the rear door, and it's bent the roof, and it's misaligned the glass panoramic sunroof. And as you can see here, you've got all these dents and creases in the roof. So the chassis is completely totaled, which is a bit of a shame. But the main thing is my friend was okay. I was actually driving the car in front of him as the accident happened, and luckily he walked away pretty much unscathed, with just a damaged wrist where the airbag deployed, and he had a watch on his wrist, and that sort of scratched his wrist a little bit. But other than that, he walked away unscathed, which I think was quite lucky, so the car's done its job. Interior wise, we've already started stripping it, and there's not really a lot left. There's a few bits and pieces that will be taken out of it still, but we'll get onto that in a minute. So this car also had Logic 7, or as it was known on LCI cars, Harman Kardon sound system, so that will be coming out. And what we've actually decided to do is to reshell it. So we're going to move all of this into a different shell, which I picked up a few months ago, in a nicer color than silver. So let me show you what this shell is going to make way for. So this is the new shell, which will soon become a 335i. It's a 2010 LCI shell in deep sea blue, which personally I think is one of my favorite E90 colors. It really looks nice in the sun, very deep navy blue color, with quite a lot of metallic in it, and it's very rare. I've hardly ever seen these cars in this color, and I think I was quite lucky to find this shell with a blown engine, and I was able to buy it for a very reasonable amount. So we've got something to start with to build into a nice 335i. But in the process of us figuring out what to do and planning the build, we thought it'd be a good idea to upgrade the gearbox. We didn't want to do a manual swap because it's quite easy and it's quite boring, I think. So we would have really liked to do a DCT swap. So we were looking for DCT parts to potentially buy a complete gearbox with prop shaft, the control modules, the gear lever, clutch assembly, flywheel, rear differential, and so on and so forth, to try and do a DCT swap in the process of us building this car. But we then stumbled across this lovely 1 Series E82 135i. So this one's N55 DCT. So our initial plan was to take the N54 out of the crashed 335i, upgrade everything we could upgrade on it. So look into having the fuel pump rebuilt, put a set of Index 12 injectors on it, put remote ignition coils on it, and do obviously the thermostat, water pump, and all the other good stuff that likes to go wrong with N54. Potentially upgrade the turbos, relocate the intakes, put catalyst downpipes on it, upgrade the intercooler, and so on and so forth. Because I think the initial plan was for us to build an E91 that makes around about 500 horsepower with a DCT gearbox, because I don't think it's ever been done before. Well, I've not at least seen it done before, and I thought it'd be quite cool in an E91 estate. But since we managed to buy a complete donor car, this 1 Series, we've decided to actually N55 swap it. Rather than build an N54, we thought it'd be a better idea to N55 swap it and just move the complete powertrain from the 1 Series into the new body and use the 335i estate, the silver car, the crashed one, as a donor for all the modules and the additional parts and wiring that we might need, and then obviously sell off the N54 along with the automatic gearbox once the build is complete. So we had a choice: make around about 500 horsepower with an N54, which would have been pretty cool, or make around about 400 horsepower with N55, which would have probably been half the price of what the N54 build would have been. Hell of a lot more reliable, much better drivability, and just an easier way and more straightforward way of doing the swap, because we have a complete N55 donor car with all the modules, all the wiring harnesses and everything, which we could just transplant into this shell. So that's what we decided to do. We decided to go for N55 reliability, slightly less horsepower but better drivability, and N54 will be up for sale once this build is complete. So I'm going to record a quick time lapse of us taking the engine out of the 1 Series and slowly stripping it. The 1 Series body will then be scrapped once it's down to the bare bones, and everything else will be kept until this build is complete, and then once the build is complete we'll get rid of all the surplus parts. So if you like this kind of thing, if you like my previous build, this is going to be similar but a little bit more complicated, and it'll probably take me a hell of a lot longer than it did with the E90. So I still plan to do exactly the same as I did before. I plan to document pretty much everything that we do, all the problems that we face, how we find solutions for them, and happy to answer any of the questions as always. So if this is your kind of thing, you enjoy watching this content, you know what to do. I'm not even going to ask for it. So yeah, hope you like this one, and see you again in the next one.